The night this all started, I had just gotten back from a late shift. I wasn't tired, but I was drained in that way, where you feel heavy behind the eyes but too anxious to sleep. The apartment was cold, unreasonably so for early fall, and my TV remote was buried somewhere under yesterday's laundry. I didn't remember turning it on, but when I walked into the living room, the screen was already glowing faint blue. Static fizzled like it was struggling to find a signal. I stood there for a moment, half thinking it was a digital artifact, until the screen flickered once, and it wasn't static anymore. It was my bedroom. Not just a bedroom, it was mine. The same messy pile of books on the side table, the ripped curtain I keep telling myself to replace, same flickering bulb in the ceiling fan, and there in the middle of the bed was me, lying motionless. I took a step closer to the TV, tilting my head just slightly, like I could change the angle and prove it was some kind of trick. My own reflection in the black frame looked just as confused. It was me. There was no doubt. The faded NASA t-shirt, the mole on my neck, the exact way my legs hung off the side, but I wasn't in bed. I was standing there, staring at the screen. I felt my arms lock up. I wasn't breathing heavy, but I noticed my heartbeat in my throat like a slow thudding drum. My mouth was dry, and for some reason, I looked behind me as if I expected something to be there. Nothing was. The apartment was still too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels intentional. I turned off the TV. The remote wasn't responding at first, so I slapped it against my palm, and finally the screen blinked to black. Silence. For about 3 seconds, then it turned itself back on. This time the footage skipped forward a few seconds. I was still in the bed on the screen, but now my arm had moved. My hand was twitching slightly, like it was trying to reach for something under the pillow. The camera angle had shifted, slightly higher now, as if mounted up in the ceiling corner. I spun around again, scanning my own room with wide eyes. There was no camera in the corner. There couldn't be. I don't even own a tripod. I grabbed my phone to film it, instinctively, but as I pointed it toward the screen, the channel changed itself. Not just flickered, it hard cut to static, then to a commercial about toothpaste, like nothing ever happened. I stood there for a while with the TV remote limp in my hand, mouth slightly open, trying to find the words for what just happened. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the floorboard, every passing car light through the blinds made my stomach curl. I lay in bed, but kept staring at the dark screen across the room, waiting for it to light up again. By morning I tried to convince myself I had imagined it. Stress, sleep deprivation, maybe I dozed off and dreamt the whole thing, but it felt real. The tactile detail of it, the ambient hum, the way the static buzzed with that high-frequency whine. No dream has ever made me feel watched like that. Still, I let it go. I had to. People go crazy staring into screens too long, right? But deep down I knew I hadn't imagined it. Because as I passed the living room TV again, the remote in my hand buzzed with a short electric pulse. The red power light on the screen blinked. Once, like it was saying, "See you tonight." I stayed away from the living room all day. Honestly, I just kept pacing in my bedroom, like I was trying to avoid stepping on a landmine I hadn't marked. The TV was off, of course, and I made sure the remote was sitting flat on the coffee table like a loaded gun I didn't want to touch. I tried to go on with things, brushed my teeth, answered some work emails, but I could still see it, that image of me lying still in bed, twitching like something inside me was trying to crawl out. Around 8 o'clock, I started hearing a faint ticking. Thought it was the wall clock. Then I realized the sound wasn't in sync with anything. My clock ticked once a second. This was slower, heavier, a wet too close kind of ticking. I put my hand against the wall, pressed my ear to the drywall. Nothing. Later, when I sat on my bed just staring at my floor, I caught myself rubbing my palms together. Not because I was cold, but because the friction helped me stay here. My thoughts were fogging up like the edges of a mirror, and the more I tried to rationalize last night's broadcast, the less the world around me made sense. At one point, I flinched violently at the sound of my neighbor dropping something upstairs. My muscles twitched so hard my right leg kicked the nightstand. I whispered Jesus to myself and noticed I was sweating under my arms. Not like I was overheating, but like I'd just barely avoided a car crash. At exactly 3:11 in the morning, I checked the microwave clock to be sure. The TV turned on by itself again. I wasn't even in the room. I was in the kitchen, and I heard the unmistakable click of static, giving way to something else. I didn't move at first. My feet were still planted on the cool linoleum, but my shoulders tightened, my breath shortened. I realized my hands had started to tremble, and I kept pressing my thumbnail into my other palm, trying to focus on the pressure, the realness of it. But the glow of the living room TV was already bleeding across the hallway like it was calling me forward. I stood in the doorway this time, just barely leaning in. On the screen was my room again, now from a lower angle, like it was shot from the foot of the bed. The me on screen was lying face down now, not asleep, not quite dead either, just wrong. My left hand was curled unnaturally, like the fingers had stiffened mid-spasm. My face was buried in the pillow, but one eye was open, just barely. I took one shaky step closer to the screen, and felt the cold sweat now trickling down my back. I hadn't realized I'd clenched my jaw until it started to ache. I whispered, "What is this?" And the me on the screen twitched, just once, as if it had heard me. I don't remember turning off the screen. 1 second it was there, humming quietly in that analog way old TVs do. The next it was black. I didn't even move. The remote was still on the table, but I do remember backing away, gripping the edge of the door frame so tightly that the bones in my hand ached. My thumb pressed so hard into the wood it left a tiny smear of blood. I must have torn a hangnail. That night, I didn't sleep in my bedroom. I locked the door and crashed on the floor of the hallway, pressed against the wall, eyes fixed on the darkened living room. I didn't know what I was more afraid of, the broadcast coming back, or the possibility that it wouldn't, and I'd be left with the doubt. By the third night I'd had enough. I hadn't watched anything on TV since that last incident, but I'd started noticing other strange things. My lights flickered not in a normal electrical way, but in this soft pulsing rhythm like a heartbeat trying to sync up with mine. I spent the entire afternoon tearing apart my bedroom looking for anything that resembled a hidden camera. I ran my fingers under the lip of the nightstand drawers, slid my hands across the wall corners like I was trying to read Braille, even pulled apart the smoke detector. Nothing. Not even dust. That absence somehow made it worse, like whoever was filming me wasn't just hidden, they were impossibly close. I kept glancing at the mirror above my dresser, and at one point I could swear the reflection lagged by half a second. My body was reacting before my brain was processing. Tics. Uncontrolled twitches in my neck. A shiver that passed through my right shoulder every time I turned too fast. I kept wringing my hands together so hard I left impressions in my skin that took minutes to fade. Even my breath had changed, shallow, short, like I was always mid-panic. I remember standing in the center of my room, turning in slow, frustrated circles like a dog trying to lie down. I knew someone, or something, had to be watching. There was no rational explanation, but that didn't help. Logic became useless when your body starts warning you in ways you can't explain. I reached out to someone that night. My friend Megan, one of the only people who wouldn't laugh if I said my TV was stalking me. She was always the level-headed one in college, and she'd dealt with me during a panic spiral before, so I figured she could help ground me. When she answered the phone, I was already pacing. My fingers were twisting in the cord of my hoodie, tightening and loosening the loop until the blood stopped in my knuckles. I told her about the footage, about how it kept changing, how it showed me sleeping when I wasn't, how the angles were different every time. She was quiet for a while, then said, "You're not joking." I told her I didn't even think I could joke anymore. She offered to come over, and I said yes before she could change her mind. When she arrived, she walked in with that usual half-joking smile she always used to make tension go away. But the second she saw my face, it dropped. She touched my arm, and I flinched without meaning to. "You're ice cold," she said, and I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Just that dry, wheezing sound that gets stuck in your throat when your body can't quite find the words. I noticed her glancing at the TV even though it was off. She sat on the couch, crossed her arms, but her knees were bouncing like she'd just downed 3 coffees. "Let's watch it tonight," she said. "If it happens again, I'll see it too." I didn't want to agree, but I did, because part of me needed someone else to see it, to validate it. Or maybe deep down, I was hoping the broadcast wouldn't show up this time, and I'd have proof I was just spiraling. So we waited, and as the hours dragged on, we talked in soft, scattered words. Megan tried to distract me, asking about work, old stories from college, but I could feel her grip tightening on the edge of the blanket she pulled around her legs. By 2:30, we'd stopped talking entirely, and by 3 o'clock, I noticed her nails were digging into the couch arm. She didn't realize it. I didn't point it out. I just kept watching the blank TV screen like it was a mouth about to open. At exactly 3:11, just like the last time, the screen blinked to life. No sound, no warning, just a sudden bloom of cold light in the room that made Megan jerk upright. She turned to me immediately, not even looking at the screen. "Did you turn it on?" I didn't respond. I was already locked in place, eyes wide, breath held. The footage on the screen showed my bedroom again, just like before, but the camera was now perched slightly above my bed, almost like it was floating. We both stared as the image slowly came into focus. I was in the bed again, same clothes, same position, except this time, I wasn't alone. Megan leaned forward, her knees creaking. Her hand reached instinctively toward me, and I felt her fingers brush mine, then slowly interlock, not gently, but with a grip that told me she was past pretending this was funny. On the screen, the other figure stood at the side of the bed, tall, motionless, like it had been there a long time. It was hard to make out. The footage was slightly grainy, but you could tell it had no defining features, no face, just a long silhouette, vaguely human, staring down at me in bed. I think I whispered something, a slurred "what the hell," but I couldn't feel my lips move. Megan didn't say anything. She was frozen. The only sound in the room was the soft shift of fabric as she pulled her legs up under her, away from the TV. The figure moved, not in a walking motion, it just suddenly was on the other side of the bed. The screen flickered when it changed, as if the tape had been edited. Then again, and again. Now it was closer, closer. Megan let out this tight, gasping sound, and grabbed my arm hard. I felt her nails dig in through the fabric of my hoodie, sharp enough that I flinched, but I didn't tell her to stop. I needed her to hold on. I needed something real. On the screen, the mitt in the bed opened its eyes. Not slowly, not in a drowsy way. They snapped open, both at once, and stared directly at the screen, as if it could see us watching. Megan yanked her hand back like she'd been burned. "That's not you," she whispered. I nodded. Barely. I could feel the tendons in my neck strain, just from trying to move my head. My heart was thudding so loud I could feel it in the base of my skull. And then, the footage glitched, just for a moment, and showed Megan sitting on the couch. Right now. Same blanket, same posture, but on the TV, her mouth was wide open in a silent scream, and blood was trickling from her nose. The figure was standing behind her, unmoving, watching. We both recoiled in the same instant, practically climbing over each other to get away from the screen. She refused to sleep in the living room after that. We dragged the coffee table to the hallway, flipped it on its side like a makeshift barricade, and curled up on the hardwood floor with our backs to the wall, facing the living room doorway like it might suddenly fill with water. Megan was shaking, full body trembling, not subtle. I watched her try to still her own hands, gripping her wrist with the opposite hand like she could strangle the panic out of it. Her lips were pressed together so tightly the color had drained out of them. I didn't sleep, neither did she. In the dark, she whispered. It knew I was here. I didn't answer. I just closed my eyes and hoped the light from the screen wouldn't come bleeding down the hallway again. The next morning, if you could call it that, I remember sitting in the kitchen with my head in my hands while Megan stood by the sink, staring out the window like she was trying to remember how the world worked. Her hair was pulled into this tight, anxious ponytail she kept redoing every couple minutes, fingers twitching. Neither of us had really spoken. When she finally turned to me, her voice was flat, dry. "What channel was it?" I blinked, then answered without thinking. 44. She nodded once. "You sure?" I was. I'd seen the red digital display on the box. "Yeah, channel 44. The moment I said it, her face shifted. Not in fear, but confusion. She picked up her phone and started scrolling through something. She looked up a moment later, brows pinched, Your cable plan doesn't even have a 44. I stared at her. What? She handed me the phone, and I scrolled. Channel 43 was a weather station. Channel 45 was some home shopping network. 44, blank, not listed. I grabbed my own laptop and logged into my provider's site. Same thing, the number didn't exist. I tried calling them. The automated voice on the line kept rerouting me until I finally got a human, a tired-sounding guy named Kyle, who probably hated his job more than I hated my own reflection at this point. When I asked him about Channel 44, there was a pause. Then he said, "There's no such channel in your area, sir." I asked again, "Are you sure?" Another pause. "Yes, sir. It's reserved bandwidth. Unused." I felt my breath catch a weird hollow sound like I'd swallowed a dry cough. I asked if anything could cause interference. Could it be a rogue signal from an adjacent frequency? A glitch from a nearby broadcast tower? He mumbled something about not really, and nothing like that should be possible, and then gently suggested I unplug the box and do a hard reset. I hung up. My fingers were trembling so badly I accidentally closed my laptop with a loud snap, which made Megan jump. "Well?" she asked. "They say it's not real," I replied. And then, without looking at her, I added, "But we both saw it." She didn't respond. Later that day, I tried filming the screen again. I waited until the usual time, somewhere between 3 o'clock and 3:20 in the morning, and had my phone ready. When the TV switched on, I hit record immediately. This time it showed my hallway, but not as it looked now. The paint was chipped. The lights were dimmer. The picture frame on the wall was hanging crooked. It looked older, as if the recording was pulled from a version of the house I hadn't lived in yet. I recorded every second of it. The screen stayed lit for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Then it blinked to black. When I stopped the recording and went to review the footage on my phone, it wasn't there. Not corrupted, not deleted. It had simply never recorded. Megan left the next day. I don't blame her. She hugged me at the door, arms tight and stiff, her head pressed against my shoulder like she was scared I might not let go. Her fingers were cold. Her voice was calm, but her eyes darted constantly to the blank TV screen, to the corners of the room, to the dark windows like something might suddenly press against the glass. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. I nodded. She didn't. I watched her walk to her car and noticed something strange as she pulled away. My reflection in the window didn't match my movement. It turned its head just a fraction too late and smiled. There's something I haven't told anyone, not Megan, not even myself out loud. I started to notice it the night after she left. The footage, it wasn't playing straight through anymore. It would jump, skip, like the kind of fast forward you do when you blink in a dream and suddenly the scenery changes. I don't know how else to describe it, but I tested it. I sat down in front of the TV, around 2:45, the room dark except for the blue standby light on the set-top box. I blinked slowly, once, twice, long blinks, full squeezes, and every time I opened my eyes again, the image on the screen had changed. It had moved ahead. My breath caught somewhere between my ribs and my throat, and I whispered no, but the screen responded with another skip, like it was following me. The footage showed my room again, of course, always my room, but it wasn't live. It was slightly ahead, like a countdown to some moment I hadn't lived yet. The me in the bed was restless now, sweating, mouth open, twitching slightly like I was trapped in a seizure or nightmare. I reached toward the remote to turn it off, and as I blinked, the footage skipped again. Now the me on screen was bleeding, just a thin line down my nose, dripping across the pillow, and something was in the room again. Not the tall shape this time, just a shadow, just movement. My arm jerked. I gasped, and when I looked at my hand, blood had begun to bead from my own nose. A thin, hot trickle. Real, present. I wiped it away with the sleeve of my sweatshirt, and nearly gagged at the metallic tang in the air. I stood too fast and felt my balance tilt. That dizziness like when you step off a moving escalator, and the world forgets how to stay still. My vision swam, blurred at the corners. I closed my eyes tight and took a breath. I told myself, this isn't real. You're hallucinating. You haven't slept. You haven't eaten. You've been living on caffeine and anxiety. That's it. That's all this is. Just a body reacting to stress. But when I opened my eyes, the TV was off, black, quiet, and my reflection stared back at me with wide, knowing eyes. I didn't touch the remote. I didn't move. I stood there for several minutes, maybe longer, watching my own image just to be sure it was really moving with me. I smiled just slightly, and so did the reflection. Relief, maybe, or denial. I touched my face. The blood was drying, crusted at the edge of my nostril. My heart was still hammering. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. Still just me. No footage, no shadow, no twitching doppelganger on the screen. But when I turned to go back to bed, just as I crossed the hallway, the TV flicked back on without sound. I didn't look. I kept walking. If I looked, I'd blink, and if I blinked, it would jump ahead again. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't blinked more than once every few minutes since. I force my eyes open with cold water. Eye drops, caffeine. I don't sleep. I don't trust myself to close my eyes. I sit with my back to the TV now, listening to it buzz quietly behind me like a dying insect. I can feel the heat from the screen, feel the soft flicker against the back of my neck, and every now and then, when my vision blurs or a tear leaks from the corner of my left eye, I can sense that the image has changed again, that it's waiting for me to look. I think the tape is running out of scenes to skip. It's getting close to now, very close, and I don't know what happens when the footage catches up. I blacked out in the shower. Not for long, maybe a few seconds, but it was enough to fall and crack my elbow against the tile. When I came to, the water had already gone lukewarm, and my mouth was open, gasping like I'd just surfaced from drowning. My eyes had shut. I didn't mean to. I'd been so careful for days, training myself not to blink, not to let the footage get ahead of me, but I must have slipped under for just long enough. I scrambled out of the tub, dripping and trembling, knees hitting the linoleum so hard it sent a sharp jolt up my spine. I crawled to the mirror, my hands shaking as I wiped steam off the glass, and for a moment I saw 2 reflections. Only one of them was breathing. I didn't leave the bathroom for nearly an hour. I sat with my back pressed against the door, towel clutched to my chest, heartbeat thumping so violently in my ears it sounded like footsteps. I kept whispering, "You're fine, it's not real," over and over, a kind of self-hypnosis even though my voice cracked on the word real. My fingers dug into my thighs hard enough to bruise, my toes curled with every creak of the floor outside. Finally, I stepped into the hall. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. No birds outside, no cars passing, just the low hum of electronics, and my TV already on. I hadn't turned it on, not this time, and I hadn't even blinked. I forced myself to walk past it. I kept my gaze on the floor, afraid even peripheral vision would betray me. But when I reached the front window, I stopped. The blinds were half open, just enough for me to see something wrong. The glass had fogged slightly, but there was a shape behind it, a smear of condensation, maybe, or maybe a face, flattened, pale, as if someone was leaning against the window, breath leaving faint circles in the cold glass. My chest locked, not my heart, my whole chest. I took a slow step closer, raised my hand, and the shape disappeared, gone. No footprints outside, no sign of anyone on the lawn, just me, and the room, and the glow of the TV behind me. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I was tired of feeling like a hunted animal. Maybe I just wanted it to stop. But I turned around and looked. The screen showed the front window, this window from outside, a live view, like someone was filming from the lawn. I could see myself through the blinds, pale, wide-eyed, hand still half raised. But what made me stagger back wasn't the image, it was the movement. In the corner of the screen, something else was crawling into frame, not walking, not even standing, just dragging itself across the grass on all fours, limbs bent wrong, head tilting upward as it neared the glass. I dove backward and slammed the blinds shut, heart now somewhere in my throat. I didn't check the door. I didn't open the window. I didn't want confirmation. I just crawled into the bathroom and locked the door again, curling up on the mat like a child hiding from thunder. I pressed my forehead to the cool tile, breathing shallow, and for the first time since this started, I began to cry. Quiet, sharp sobs. I bit down on like I was afraid the noise would summon something. Outside the door, I swear I heard whispering, not voices, just the suggestion of sound, the way your name feels in your gut when someone says it across a crowded room. I'm not alone anymore, not in my house, not even in my head. I've stopped checking the time, it doesn't matter anymore. I know the signal comes around 3:11, but lately, the footage has started appearing earlier. I'll walk past the TV at midnight, and there it is playing without sound, already several minutes ahead of me. I'll be sitting on the couch, legs crossed, staring blankly at the wall, but I'm also on the screen in the same position, only I move slightly before I do. I scratch my shoulder just as I see myself scratch it on the feed. I blink, and the me on screen blinks first. It's not delayed, it's leading me. I've stopped thinking of it as a recording. It's not even surveillance. It's more like a preview. I started testing it again. I wrote a word on a piece of paper, knife, folded it, placed it on the kitchen table, then waited. At 2:45, the footage showed me opening the paper. I hadn't touched it yet. On the screen, I nodded solemnly, went to the drawer and pulled out the large serrated blade I keep for bread. On screen, I placed the knife beside the note. Calm, careful. I was shaking. I wasn't calm, but I watched myself behave as if the decision had already been made, and the real me followed, like gravity pulled me into the role. My hand moved toward the drawer. I didn't want it to. It just did. I think I'm beginning to split. There's the me who watches, and the me who acts, and the line between them is evaporating. When I laugh now, it's dry, instinctive, not from humor. When I move, I notice a delay in my thoughts catching up. I'll catch myself standing in a different room, with no memory of why I went there. Yesterday, I was washing my face, and when I looked up into the mirror, the wrong me smiled before I did, like it was rehearsing something, practicing my movements but with better timing, cleaner lines. It felt like watching an actor play me, and realizing he was better at it. I smashed the camera on my laptop, then the one on my phone. I wrapped every reflective surface in towels, turned the mirrors to face the walls. I even covered the stainless steel of the fridge with paper. Still, I catch glimpses. I feel myself being watched, not just visually, but intellectually. The way you feel someone reading over your shoulder, except it's inside your head. I'll have a thought and then hear a phrase on the TV that mimics it. I'll remember something, a dream, a moment, and seconds later, I'll see it reenacted on the screen. Not always perfectly, but close enough that it hurts. Tonight, the footage showed something new. Me standing at the edge of my bed, holding the serrated knife, shirtless, blood running down my left arm, but not cut deep, not like an injury, more like a mark, symbols, carved with precision. I leaned closer to the screen, paused it, tried to trace the shapes. I couldn't. They didn't stay still. My stomach twisted into a knot. I didn't want to believe it, but part of me already knew what it meant. I'm not watching the future anymore. I'm watching a decision play out, a script. Something is getting ready. And when the broadcast catches up, I won't be the one holding the remote anymore. Megan hasn't answered her phone in 2 days. At first, I assumed she was trying to forget to block it out and convince herself none of it was real. I get that. I wish I could do the same. But then her text stopped too. Her social media froze. I checked our message history, and something was off. I scrolled back, and the conversation where she agreed to stay over, it was gone. The photos we took in college wiped. I even called her mom. She said Megan had gone home to visit a week ago, but never showed up. Never called, never returned any messages. She sounded scared, but more than that, confused, like she couldn't quite remember the last time they talked. I scrolled through the call logs, trying to find anything that might prove she was here. Something tangible, but it was like reality had rewritten itself. I checked my security cam, the one I keep in the entryway, and the feed from that night had been corrupted. Just a black screen with occasional glitching white lines, like the silhouette of someone who'd almost existed. That was when I realized the footage might not just show what will happen, it might show what's already been erased, a replacement for real memory. I sat on the floor, legs pulled against my chest like I was trying to fold myself into a smaller version, something less visible. I felt my fingers clutching my socks too tightly, circulation fading, but I couldn't let go. I just couldn't. At 3:11, the TV came on, as if it had been waiting for me. The broadcast was different this time. Still static, still grainy. But now it was a split screen, 2 feeds side by side. On the left, my bedroom, empty, dark, still. On the right, Megan, sitting in my living room, same position as the night she visited, blanket around her shoulders. The timestamp read, 2 days ago. My breath caught in my throat. I stood up slowly, the muscles in my back protesting, tight like cables. On the screen, Megan turned her head, looked toward the hallway, toward the camera. Then behind her, the same figure, pale, wrong, leaning forward from the corner, like it had just unfolded out of the shadows. I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't. My fingers hovered over the remote, trembling violently, knuckles white from strain. The footage flickered again. Megan's body snapped upright like a marionette yanked by a hidden string. Her mouth opened in a scream, but there was no sound, just the hum, that infernal analog hum, growing louder in my chest than in the room. The figure leaned down, reached toward her face, and then, in a single frame blink, she was gone. The blanket still fluttered slightly, like the air had been vacuumed out, and the timestamp, it now read 00:00:01, like she'd been reset. I haven't told anyone. There's no one left to tell. Her number now rings with an error tone. Our photos are gone. Even my memory feels fuzzy, like the more I try to focus on her face, the more it slides out of alignment. I wrote her name on my wall just to remember it. Megan Ann Wilder. 3 times, Sharpie, large letters. But I woke up the next day and the ink had bled into illegible strokes, as if the wall was rejecting it. I'm writing this down now not for clarity, not even for hope, but because I think I'm next, and I want there to be at least one trace left of us, something the signal hasn't eaten. It's not just my TV anymore. That's how I know it's real. Not madness, not some dissociative break. My neighbors are talking about it. Or they were. I don't know anymore. I remember hearing shouting through the wall last night. The guy next door, Mike, yelling at his wife. Not angry, panicked. I heard something crash. A TV, glass, then silence. I haven't seen them since. No lights on in their place. Mail piling up. Same with the people across the street. The porch light's been flickering since 2 nights ago. That rhythmic strobe like a signal, like it's waiting for someone to blink in sync with it. I tried to knock. No one answered, but I saw the glow of the screen inside their living room. Bright, constant. And the audio, it wasn't voices, it was breathing. Then came the broadcast override. It was just after midnight, hours before the usual time. Every channel flipped at once. Didn't matter if the TV was on or off. It just switched. My screen, the one in the kitchen, even my laptop, all displaying the same thing. Black background, white text, blocky, flickering like it was trying to stay cohesive. The words read, "Do not attempt to record this signal. It is already recording you." I backed away, tripped over the rug, and landed on my hands. My palms scraped the floor, and I didn't even notice the blood until minutes later. I stared at that message, and slowly, painfully slowly, the text began to change. One word at a time, like something was typing it in real time. Begin integration phase. Then, signal match confirmed. Subject NUP002. I swear to God, I could hear my name under the static. The message disappeared, and the screen showed the inside of a grocery store. My grocery store, down to the tilted sign in aisle 5 that always squeaked in the air vents. The camera panned, shakily, like handheld footage toward the meat department, and there I was, standing motionless in the middle of the aisle, pale, eyes wide, staring into nothing. But I haven't been to that store in over a week. I called the number on the receipt, shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The voice on the other end sounded like a recording, distorted, looping, slightly off tempo. "Thank you for calling," it said. "You have already arrived." Then silence. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. It's not about my TV anymore. It never was. The footage has spread. It's on my phone now, in my dreams. I'll close my eyes for just a second, and suddenly I'm watching instead of seeing, a different perspective. Higher, lower, across the street, inside a reflection. A single frame from earlier today. Before it happened, just lingering like a cough you forgot to have. I saw myself walking down my hallway earlier, a version of me that hadn't moved yet. Then 5 seconds later I matched it, perfectly. I'm lagging. I'm following myself like a bad actor. There are signs of it everywhere now, in digital billboards, broken phone screens, microwaves mid-countdown, just static. Then words, then me. Always me. I think the signal is learning how to copy. Not just observe, not just mimic. Integrate. It's spreading like mold in the frequencies, finding the right voices, the right faces to wear. I'm not even sure I'm the original anymore. What if the real me blinked too many times? What if I already got skipped forward, and what's left is just this echo? I checked my pulse last night, and couldn't find it at first. Held my hand to my chest and felt nothing. Then it came, faint, late, like it was trying to remember the beat. I laughed, loud, real, the kind of laugh that comes after funerals and failed parachutes. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw the screen brighten, like it was smiling with me. I woke up to find the living room glowing again, but the TV was off, unplugged, cord yanked from the wall days ago. Yet the glow was there, humming in the air like breath on cold glass. I didn't think, I didn't blink. I just walked into the room, grabbed the lamp off the end table, and swung it through the screen with everything I had. Sparks, shards, a high-pitched scream of collapsing circuitry. It felt good for a second, real. The glass left a red line across the side of my wrist, and I didn't care. I stood over the wreckage panting, blood on my knuckles. Pieces of plastic biting into the soles of my feet. It felt like I'd killed something. I wanted it to be dead. But the glow didn't stop. It shifted, moved to the microwave. I watched in frozen disbelief as the digital clock scrambled, flickered, then settled into a new timestamp, 3:11 a.m. And then the screen, all 6 inches of that little panel, displayed a familiar image. My hallway. Right now. My broken reflection hunched in the living room, covered in dust and blood, and breathing like an animal. I stared. It blinked. I turned away, and saw my phone light up on the floor. A notification. Just one. "You're on." I picked it up, fingers numb, and every app opened itself, one by one, showing still frames of my own face from angles that didn't exist. One image showed me lying on the floor, bleeding out. Another showed me staring directly into the lens. Another had no me at all, just the empty room. I don't know how long I sat there. My body moved without orders, dragging blankets over the windows, stuffing towels under door gaps. Like that would stop it, stop them, stop me. Every screen, every shiny surface started acting like a receiver. The toaster, the faucet, the glass on the oven. I began seeing brief flashes, not full footage, just blinks. Me from behind. Me walking into frame. Me asleep with someone else's hands hovering above my chest. I covered the bathroom mirror again, but I swear I heard tapping from inside the wall. The shower drain gurgled once, then sighed. My own reflection still moved when I didn't. I started recording audio, thinking maybe if I couldn't trust my eyes, I could at least document what I heard. But the playback was never right. Words rearranged, breaths repeated. At one point, my voice said something I hadn't said. "Don't close your eyes," not even once. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like an order. That's when I finally realized the truth. The screens were never transmitting the signal, they were just catching it, reflecting it. I am the receiver. The footage is me, around me, inside me. A second skin, a delayed shadow, maybe not even delayed anymore. Maybe it's leading now, maybe I'm the one echoing it. I broke everything, every device, every screen, every bulb and reflective surface. I covered the floors in blankets, the walls in old towels, and still, I catch glimpses in puddles, in shadows, in my own corneas. The reflection doesn't always match anymore. Sometimes I move my hand and it lags. Other times it moves first, like it's prompting me. A loop feeding itself. No cause, no effect, just happening. I keep hearing that phrase over and over. You're on. Not a warning, not an invitation, just fact. Like it's a live broadcast. And I'm not the only one tuned in. The footage started doubling last night. Not a split screen this time, not a camera trick, just two of me, on screen. One sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee with both hands curled around the mug. The other pacing behind him, same hair, same posture, same little twitch in the left shoulder I've had since high school. I watched, breathless, as they both froze in unison and looked toward the camera, directly into it. Into me. I staggered back and knocked over the chair behind me, my knees already giving out. I didn't scream, couldn't. The kind of fear I felt, it goes deeper than sound. It sinks into your organs. When I crawled back to the screen, only one version of me was still visible. The one at the table, calm, collected, sipping coffee like nothing was wrong. But I recognized something in the way he moved, something too smooth, too precise. That wasn't me. That was the other me, the one that's been creeping forward in the footage, frame by frame, getting closer with every blink, every skipped second. I paused the video and stared into his eyes. They were mine, but cleaner, brighter, smiling without lips. It hit me, all at once. The footage isn't copying me anymore, it's replacing me, and it's better at it. Better posture, better expression, more convincing. I've started catching glimpses of him in real life, in places I know I'm not, through doorways I haven't opened, reflections that vanish too fast. The other day, I thought I saw myself walking across the street outside my building, hoodie up, head down. I ran to the window but he was gone. Last night, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not heavy, not stealthy, just intentional. When I pressed my ear to the door, I heard breathing, not mechanical, not synthetic, mine. That slow, uneven breath I take when I'm trying not to cry. And just as I pulled away, I heard my own voice whisper from the other side, "You missed your cue." My memories are starting to bleed too. I'll think back to something, brushing my teeth, getting groceries, writing this, and I can't tell if I actually did it, or just saw it in the footage. Did I eat today? Or did I just watch myself eating in a loop from last week? I found a notebook under my bed that I don't remember writing in, full of tiny blocky letters. Same handwriting, sure, but cleaner, too clean, like someone had practiced me until they got it right. The last page had only one line, circled twice. You'll feel better once you let go. Let go of what? Control? Identity? Or consciousness? I think I know what happens next. The footage is almost caught up. Every time I blink now, I feel like I lose a little more time. I'll sit down and suddenly it's dark outside. I'll open a drawer and find things I don't remember buying. I saw myself on my phone yesterday. The lock screen camera caught it. A still image of my own face, looking down at me like a disappointed parent. My hands started to tremble. Then they stopped trembling. Not because I calmed down, but because he had taken over. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to know what it felt like. Not being in control of your own body. I don't think it'll give it back next time. Tonight the footage stopped skipping. There were no glitches, no static, no delay. Just a clean, steady shot of me. Here, now, sitting in front of the TV. It was the same shirt I'm wearing, same lighting, same mug of tea I just made but haven't touched. I waved, and the version on screen waved at the exact same moment. No lag, no anticipation, just perfect synchronicity. I stood, it stood. I sat, it sat. My mouth dried out so quickly, I had to force myself to swallow. That action, the swallow, happened on screen a full second before I did it, not because it was showing the future, but because I was following it. I whispered the only thing I could think to say, "Is this live?" And the screen changed for the first time without flickering. Just 3 words in that familiar blocky font. "This is not a recording." The image returned, but now the camera had moved behind me. I turned around. No one. But on the TV, there was someone, a second me, hunched behind the real me, hands inches from my shoulders, and as I watched, his fingers twitched forward and touched me. I felt it. Not a cold hand, not a warm one, just the weight, the pressure of being handled. I stood so fast the tea spilled across the floor, but the screen stayed frozen, the figure still holding my shoulders, eyes wide, mouth open just slightly in a silent "oh." I backed away slowly, hands out, but I could feel something happening under my skin, a low vibration, like static inside my bones. My ears popped. The TV screen dimmed for a second, then blinked back to full brightness. Now it showed the inside of my room, but I wasn't in it. No version of me at all, just a chair facing the screen, and a message. Signal retained. Body accepted. I screamed, finally. For the first time since this started, I screamed so hard my throat tore, voice cracking halfway through like a snapped cord. I turned off the breaker to the entire apartment. Darkness, stillness, but the screen didn't go black. The TV wasn't plugged in anymore, neither was anything else, and yet it glowed. There's no timestamp on the footage now, no metadata, no interface. It just plays, loops. I sit down and watch. I sleep, sometimes. I wake up, and the screen has changed. I don't write anymore, I just think, and the words appear. Not on the screen, on the walls, on the back of my eyelids. A few minutes ago, I saw something new. The broadcast isn't coming from here. It's not even local. It's global. It's ancient. It's always been broadcasting, just waiting for someone to tune in. I was just the right match, the right signal pattern, the right face. And now, as I write this, I see myself on screen again, staring into the camera. Expression calm, eyes full of light, no sound, no breath, just the faint static that isn't really static. It's the sound of something watching, waiting, echoing back. The feed doesn't end anymore. It doesn't glitch. It doesn't change channels. It just is. A presence without source, without destination. A window that opened and never closed. You're watching this, aren't you? You've been reading every word, haven't you? You've been staring into the screen, and it's been staring back. You see it now, don't you? Don't look away. You're on.